Welcome to the deep dive. Today is September 15th, 2025, and the nation is really in a volatile place right now.
It really is.
Just a few days ago, September 11th, we saw the tragic assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. He was speaking on a college campus in Utah.
Yeah, terrible news. And the shockwaves are definitely being felt.
Absolutely. Sources on Capitol Hill are describing it as, a tinderbox. Lawmakers are openly concerned about their personal security.
And you can understand why.
And this is all happening with that critical government funding deadline just around the corner, September 30th. It's really shaping everything.
It's adding immense pressure. And then there's the FBI angle, too.
Right. FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed they're investigating pro-trans organizations and online groups and also revolutionary leftist groups for any potential links to Kirk's assassination.
Which really brings these ideological tensions right into the national security discussion.
Yeah.
It's stark.
From campus stages to the halls of Congress, America is navigating a complex future, and the federal budget stands right on the front lines of that challenge. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack the tumultuous journey to the 2025 federal budget. We'll look at how policy goals met gridlock, external pressures, political tensions.
All culminating in this full-year continuing resolution.
Exactly, and setting the stage for what comes next under President Trump's administration.
And it's so critical, I think, to understand how these huge political events, including that awful tragedy, get tangled up with what seems like a technical process, federal spending.
It's never just about the dollars and cents, is it?
No, it's about policy, security. It all shapes those budget decisions.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The landscape for the 2025 budget. There was a big shift after the 2024 election.
A huge shift. Donald Trump elected president, Republicans taking majorities in both the House and Senate.
Right, and that clearly signaled, a new direction for how federal money would be spent.
Absolutely. A clear mandate, you could say, for different fiscal approaches.
Yeah.
And the groundwork was sort of already there.
You mean the Fiscal Responsibility Act from 2023?
Exactly. That act, which came out of a previous debt ceiling fight, set spending caps for this fiscal year, FY 2025.
Remind us what a fiscal year is again.
Oh, sure. It's just the government's 12-month accounting period. So for FY 2025, the caps were $895 billion for defense and $711 billion for non-defense discretionary spending.
And discretionary spending is the part Congress decides on each year, right? Not things like Social Security.
Correct. That's the pot they allocate annually.
Wow.
And those caps meant just a small 1% increase over FY 2024, really aimed at tightening the belt.
And where we ended up for FY 2025 is pretty significant. A full year continuing resolution, a CR.
Yeah, basically hitting pause.
Can you explain a CR quickly?
Sure. It's essentially a stopgap. When Congress can't agree on a full budget, a CR keeps the government running, usually by extending the previous year's funding levels.
Like freezing things in place. And notably, President Trump endorsed this full-year CR. He said it would freeze spending this year.
And that statement, endorsing the freeze, that's powerful. It shows a strategic choice, stick with existing levels, instead of potentially increasing spending through new negotiations.
Which aligns with a conservative goal of fiscal restraint.
From one perspective, yes. It avoids immediate increases. But, the flip side is agencies don't get adjustments for maybe inflation or new needs. That can be tough operationally.
Okay, so getting to that freeze wasn't simple. Let's dig into the earlier battles, the obstruction back in 2024.
Right. Things were contentious even then.
In the summer of 2024, sources say House Republicans were pushing hard for their own pretty partisan spending bills.
Very much so. They included quite significant cuts, about 6% in non-defense spending, and they packed them with policy riders.
What kind of riders are we talking about?
Things touching on hot-button issues. Abortion access, environmental rules, gender-affirming care, diversity programs. Trying to use the budget to advance specific policy changes.
But those efforts didn't get far.
No. They faced pushback even within the Republican Party, and sources said they were basically dead on arrival in the Senate, which Democrats controlled at the time. It just shows how hard it is to pass partisan budgets with divided government.
Which led to that showdown in September 2024. On the 9th, H.R. 9494 was introduced.
That one bundled a 6-month CR with a pretty controversial measure, compulsory proof of citizenship for voting.
A direct push on election integrity. How did that go down?
It failed. Rejected on September 18th, 202-20. Opposition came from, both sides, in a way.
How so?
Some hardline Republicans felt it didn't cut spending enough. And Democrats obviously opposed the voting rules, bundling those things just didn't work.
So Speaker Mike Johnson pivoted.
Right. He proposed H.R. 9747, what they called a clean CR, just funding, no major policy riders to keep things going until December 20th, 2024.
And that one passed.
Yes, quite smoothly. Passed September 25th with big bipartisan numbers, 341-82 in the House, 78-18 in the Senate. A pragmatic move to avoid a shutdown.
And there was something else in that CR, wasn't there? Security funding.
Yes, that's crucial context. It included an extra $231 million for the Secret Service.
Why the sudden boost?
It was a direct reaction to those 2 reported assassination attempts against Donald Trump, who was the Republican nominee then. It really highlights how quickly national security threats can force urgent budget changes.
A very real-world impact shaping the spending. Okay, let's jump to December. Another clash, this time shining a light on spending practices.
Ah, yes, the December drama.
On December 17th, 2024, another bipartisan CR proposed, H.R. 10445. This one aimed to fund things until March 14th, 2025. But it got labeled a Christmas tree bill.
It did, and for good reason, according to critics. It was massive, over 1,500 pages. And why? Because it was loaded with numerous unrelated policy items.
Like what?
Oh, all sorts. Economic aid for farmers, new rules on U.S. investment in China, transferring ownership of RFK Stadium in D.C., extending healthcare programs, even effectively a 3.8% pay bump for members of Congress.
And many Republicans weren't happy.
No. Sources say many called these additions unnecessary and wasteful. It just showed the problem with these big omnibus-style deals where everyone tries to attach their pet projects.
And then some big names got involved. Elon Musk.
Right. Musk, who is a major Republican donor and talked about as the potential head of a new Department of Government Efficiency, he went on a tear on X, formerly Twitter.
Over 100 posts against the bill.
Yeah, sources say over 100 posts. Now, some critics called his claims misleading, but his opposition was relentless. He's widely credited with helping to sink the bill.
And immediately after Musk's campaign,
President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance jumped in, released a statement calling the deal a Democrat giveaway.
And that was it for the bill?
Pretty much. Speaker Johnson dropped it right after that. It was a powerful display, really, of how conservative leaders could influence the legislative track, especially against what they saw as wasteful spending.
So the push continued. The American Relief Act proposals. What happened next?
Well, on December 19th, President-elect Trump laid out demands. Remove all the extra spending, except for disaster and farmer aid, and crucially, suspend the debt ceiling until 2027.
Suspend the debt ceiling, meaning the government could borrow more without hitting the limit?
Exactly. It's the legal limit on government borrowing. Trump endorsed this new bill, H.R. 10515, but
it failed.
It failed in the House, 174-235. Interestingly, 38 Republicans voted against it, joining most Democrats. Sources say many hardliners just wouldn't raise the debt ceiling without more guaranteed spending cuts first.
That highlights some internal GOP friction, even with Trump's backing.
Definitely. So they quickly retooled again. A third proposal, same number, H.R. 10445, but this time, critically, without the debt ceiling suspension.
And that one worked.
Yes. Passed both chambers with huge bipartisan margins on December 20th, 366-34 in the House, 85-11 in the Senate. President Biden signed it. Government funded through March 14th, 2025. Shutdown averted again through compromise.
But there was talk of a side deal, right? A handshake agreement.
That's what sources reported. An understanding between Republicans and President-elect Trump for a future plan. Find $2.5 trillion in spending cuts in return for a $1.5 trillion debt ceiling increase later.
Signaling major fiscal battles ahead.
Absolutely. Setting the stage for a longer-term strategy, aim for big cuts, but also acknowledge borrowing needs. A balancing act.
Which brings us to March 2025 and securing funding for the entire fiscal year.
Finally getting the full year sorted.
On March 8th, the Full Year Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act 2025 H.R. 1968 was introduced. This extended funding right through to September 30th, 2025.
It did, but with some adjustments. Not just a straight extension. It included a modest increase for defense, but also some specific cuts to non-defense areas. Bit of shaping in there.
And President Trump's view.
He endorsed it. Explicitly stated it would freeze spending this year. That messaging was key, aligning it with his administration's fiscal goals.
The House vote was close, though.
Very close. Passed March 11th, 217 to 213, almost entirely along party lines. All Republicans present voted yes, except Thomas Massie. Nearly all Democrats voted no. Showed pretty strong GOP unity on this approach by then.
What about the Senate? Any hurdles there?
Yes, the filibuster threat. They needed to invoke cloture the procedure, to end debate and force a vote. That requires 60 votes.
And they get them.
They did. On March 14th, the vote was 62 to 38. But look who they needed. 9 Democrats and 1 Democrat-affiliated independent had to cross the aisle to provide those crucial votes.
So even with a majority, Republicans needed some bipartisan help to get it over the line procedurally.
Exactly. It shows how Senate rules often force compromise. After cloture, the bill passed 54 to 46. President Trump signed it March 15th. Federal operations secured for the rest of FY 2025.
And now, with unified control, White House, Senate Republicans have another tool, reconciliation.
Right. That's the plan. Use the budget reconciliation process. It's a special pathway that lets certain budget-related bills pass the Senate with just a simple majority, dodging the 60-vote filibuster hurdle.
Making it much easier to pass big spending cuts or policy changes.
Precisely. It's a critical mechanism for President Trump's administration to enact its agenda, especially those potentially contentious fiscal reforms. The 2024 election results really unlock that possibility.
Now, all these intense budget talks, as we said, didn't happen in a vacuum. That backdrop of national tension, political volatility, it kept influencing things.
Absolutely. You can't separate the budget from the broader climate.
Let's circle back to the event we started with, the assassination of Charlie Kirk on September 11th.
Such a shocking event. Sources say the suspected assassin, Tyler Robinson, reportedly confessed online, described as having a leftist ideology and a transgender partner.
And the FBI investigation?
Director Patel confirmed DNA links Robinson to the crime. And the investigation is digging into his online activity, specifically his Discord group, focusing on potential links to pro-trans organizations or revolutionary leftist groups, trying to see if there was any foreknowledge or broader connection.
A deeply concerning investigation into potential extremist violence.
And the focus on ideological motives is obviously very high.
Conservative leaders responded very strongly. Speaker Johnson called for a vigil, saying, "I think this could be a turning point," urging national unity against political violence.
A call for reflection.
President Trump's reaction was forceful. Sources quote him saying, "There are a large number of people on the left who are being investigated, and that he's already investigating those he feels share blame."
Very strong words. And you also had Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller vowing a crackdown on left-wing domestic terror movement in Charlie's name.
So a clear message of resolve from conservative leadership, a promise to address extremism head-on.
Yes, signaling a potential policy priority moving forward, focusing on domestic security from that perspective.
And these security fears had immediate budget consequences too, didn't they?
They did. In response to the assassination and what was called an increased threat environment, the White House asked for an extra $58 million.
For what specifically?
Security for the executive branch, the White House itself, and the judicial branch. And Congress was expected to request similar funding for its own security.
So real dollars allocated because of the heightened danger to public officials?
Absolutely. It's a stark reminder that security, domestic security included, is a constant budget factor, and sudden events can force immediate, necessary spending shifts.
These tensions also played out in the political messaging around the budget. The NRCC, the House Republican campaign arm, launched ads today, September 15th.
Yeah, targeting 25 House Democrats they see as vulnerable.
What's the message in those ads?
According to our sources, they accuse Democrats of threatening a government shutdown to stop President Trump's policies. They specifically mention cracking down on MS-13 and violent criminals, wanting to abolish ICs, and risking funding for veterans, the military, police, and Border Patrol by prioritizing undocumented immigrants.
So framing the budget debate very sharply around security, immigration, and contrasting priorities.
Exactly. Using the budget fight to draw clear lines for voters, connecting spending decisions directly to hot-button policy issues.
And President Trump himself got involved in related issues.
Yes. Sources report he criticized New York Governor Kathy Hochul for endorsing a socialist mayoral candidate, Zohran Mamdani, and he threatened to withhold federal funds from New York over it.
Showing a willingness to use federal financial leverage against state or local policies deemed too progressive.
It's a consistent theme, isn't it? Using federal power budget allocations, funding threats to try and shape policy right down to the local level, pushing back against agendas the administration opposes.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's just undeniable that the 2025 budget process was, well, a real struggle, a year of intense negotiation set against a deeply contentious political backdrop.
Absolutely. We saw specific policy goals, particularly around fiscal responsibility pushed by President Trump and Republicans, really clash with partisan opposition and these broader ideological fights.
But despite all those challenges, they did carve out a path. They got the spending freeze for this fiscal year through that full-year CR.
Right, and they've set up the framework, like that reconciliation process, for pursuing bigger reforms and cuts down the road.
It really does underscore the sheer complexity of governing, doesn't it? Trying to set a course for fiscal policy and national security in such a volatile environment. Every single decision feels weighted.
It really does.
And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? As our nation continues to grapple with this political violence, these deep divisions, how will this ongoing fight over spending, over what are framed as core American values, ultimately shape not just our economy, but maybe the very soul of the republic?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something to keep watching very closely.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.